Yeah, it's been something interesting that I've been like thinking about with Star Wars lately. It's like, where do you go next? Like, obviously, we talked about them like filling in stories and filling in plot holes, and like that's kind of been seeing like what they've been doing. But I also look at someone like Balin, who is easily one of my favorite villains in the Star Wars universe. And we say villain, assuming like in the next couple episodes he's still going to be a villain by the end of it. But like the actor that plays him, Ray, he's unfortunately passed away. And I feel like it would be such a great service to that character that if they were to expand Balin's backstory through animation and do like a Clone Wars, Rebels, Resistance style story around Balin, 100% would be on board for that.
I would too. And that image that I sent you, my dad
Oh,
actually sent
yeah.
me, where it was an image of the little boy, the youngling that talks to Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, where he comes in, he's like, Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do? And then you
Hmm.
just see the lightsaber, like, I don't know. I was going to say, did he slaughter the youngling? Like, what if he lets them go? What if
That'd
that
be
was
the
a moment
ultimate
of weakness?
Disney moment where he's like,
Right?
get out of here. Like,
Right?
I feel like that would take away
And
from
what
the
if
character.
that's Balin? What if that kid, like, it showed a picture of the kid and Balin
Hmm.
side by side, and I was like, what if that ends up being a thing, or what if somehow that kid survives? What if he gets stabbed in the stomach and he survives?
So the only reason, and I guess like we don't know the how Ahsoka's species age, like
Okay,
compared to humans,
right.
but like for Balin to be so young in that moment and Ahsoka to be like a
Mm.
19-year-old in that moment, maybe 20-year-old, and then we're now here in Balin's like grandpa status or like mid 50s. I just don't feel like the time. I don't know.
That's fair, because you have to think, like, the Obi-Wan series, he was still like,
Hmm.
what was it, only 20 years?
Yeah,
Yeah, so there's no way that the little kid is only
but then this
I
takes
mean, think
place
about that.
after Return of the Jedi, right? So like,
Yeah, but not much. I think it's only like 9 years after, or something like
yeah,
that, 9 to 12 years or something like that.
yeah.
So
So even
even
then, it
then, 30
wouldn't.
years.
But I do like the idea of it, him being one of the Jedi's that he lets free. But
Yeah, you have to assume that he was some young. Well, what do we say? 30 years. So take Balin,
mhm.
subtract 30 years.
So Padawan,
Yeah,
maybe.
maybe a Padawan of somebody's, or maybe what if Anakin had another Padawan?
But again, with Balin, like, isn't one of the things that makes him badass is how very little we know about him.
The mystery. Yeah, that's what intrigues me the most about him. Is and I'm gonna be upset if these next 3 episodes of Ahsoka come out and we don't find out his backstory.
But again, I don't know. Like, I think yeah, I definitely want to know. Like, I want to know the guy's backstory. But I go back to like Star Wars being Star Wars. Like, we assumed that Obi-Wan just went into hiding and then we
Right.
had a New Hope and then they gave us a story.
Right.
Them not closing the circle on Balin by the end of this series, hey, I'm cool with that as long as you're going to do something to give me that backstory later on.
What if they kill him off without a backstory?
But then, yeah, I mean, that would definitely suck. At least
Do
leave Shin
you
Hati alive.
do you see a season 2 coming for Ahsoka?
I don't know. I want it. I want it
Okay.
real. I want it real bad.
So think about this: if they don't do a season 2, where does that leave those characters?
Dead.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if they're gonna do like an animated series about Balin, it's gonna have to be his backstory of like maybe him surviving Order 66 or something. Like,
I saw that, wasn't there a series, like a real quick, like, kind of mini series that was like Tales of a Jedi or something like that?
yeah, and that goes
And I
into like Ahsoka's backstory, and it goes
Yeah,
into Dooku's.
so I want them to do like Tales of a Sith,
Yeah, that would be
and go
dope.
more into some of the backstories of some of the Sith. I think that'd be sick.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars has such a great lineup of like bad guys. Like, it's just
Mm.
and so much of it is like there's just so much raw potential. Like Maul, like we've gotten so much Maul in the animated series, but I feel like the character's just scratching the surface. And then you got Dooku, you got Palpatine, you got Vader, you got Balin, you got Shin, you go Kylo, you got the Knights of Ren, you got Snoke. You literally just go down the lineup. Grievous, throw him in there. there's so much backstory and so much of these characters that I would love to see expanded in like a Tales of the Sith series. It'd be
Hmm.
fantastic.
Oh man, we're gonna be old and gray still doing this podcast, my man. With how much stuff I feel like they could put out.
Yeah, I mean, it does raise the question. You always hear how great DC Comics is with their lineup of baddies, right?
Yeah,
Joker, Two Face, all these guys. Has Star Wars surpassed DC?
DC specifically.
Yeah, I mean, just to begin, I mean, like that's because
Oh
that's who I would go to
man,
for saying like having some of the best villains.
that's true because I feel like Marvel villains aren't as immediately well known. Like
Hmm.
maybe Thanos is now, but just how like popular he was like recently. I
Right,
think before they just did like Endgame and Infinity War, and even some of the movies before that. If you would have said Thanos, some people are like, "Who's that?"
right.
But
Whereas
like
if somebody said,
Joker,
yeah,
you know immediately. Like a little kid sees Joker, they know that's Joker, and I think that's the same for Darth Vader. A little kid sees Darth Vader, they know that's Darth Vader. Like so surpassed. Oh gosh, who would you say is DC's ultimate bad guy or
it
most recognizable? Joker?
it's got to be Joker, right?
Because I understand there's probably more powerful bad guys, obviously, but I think most recognizable immediately,
Yeah, it's
probably
gonna be either
Joker.
Joker or Two Face, maybe Lex Luthor, but no, I would say Joker.
I don't even think Lex Luthor or Two Face. I think
Yeah,
Joker. Joker's the only one that's so different because he's like a clown
yeah,
that I think that's the most immediately well known or recognized amongst all age groups, kids,
yeah.
teens, adults, older people. Maybe I think that would probably be the most well known. And like I said, I think Vader would be the most well known. You got to think like who's second because that's one and one. But who would be a super well known, immediate, known well bad guy from Star Wars, and then same for DC. I think
Yeah,
that gives you your answer.
Palpatine. But
Maybe
but does your average
that's what
person
I'm saying.
know Palpatine's name? Or
Like
yeah,
that's an old guy in a robe. I don't
yeah,
like. I think that's where it's hard to say that it's surpassed DC because who's number two?
right,
That's where it comes down to.
yeah. Is Palpatine the true villain of Star Wars?
Yes.
And you got to think like that dude was riding on black the entire time, man, and he's just like, "It's gonna hit. I'm backing these guys. This needs to happen." And then something I was thinking about when I was listening back to one of our podcasts, we were talking about Anakin, and I was like, Anakin kind of threw a wrench in Palpatine's plans completely. Because like his whole thing was like, oh, the Trade Federation, the Separatists, blah 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 blah. But
Hmm.
then like Anakin shows up and he's like, oh, I'm gonna kill Maul, like, or I'm gonna let Maul die, and this new kid's gonna be my, it's just like
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
This new kid's more powerful.